Hi, welcome to Way Too Famous. I'm Michale Vassos. Today we're going to talk about a thing we call what makes it great. And it's about songs and why we think these songs are great songs. Today's segment is about Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. There's different criteria as to what we thought would make a great song. A lot of people think it has to do with the music or chords or melody. For some people, it's all about the lyric. It's all about words. Me personally, I think that what makes a song timeless is a combination of both of those things plus a great performance by a great performer. When you put that all together, you come up with something like Bohemian Rhapsody that's really timeless. Bohemian Rhapsody was released on October 31st of 1975. That's right, Halloween. This song broke a lot of barriers. It's written more like a classical piece than it is a pop song of that era. It's done in movements, and there's no chorus, which makes it really different to be a hit song. Two of the reasons it's great is not only was it a hit song once, but it was a hit song twice. Top 10 twice, that's right, yeah. It's written by Freddie Mercury, the entire thing, including the big heavy rock part where the guitars come in at the end, which most guitar players would think, oh, that's the guitar part. Well, that's written by Freddie. And you can actually kind of tell because it's in a key that's kind of odd, so to speak, as far as guitar players go. If you're a rock guy, you'll kind of know what I mean. Now, the song Bohemian Rhapsody was very groundbreaking in a lot of ways, not only because it had no chorus in it, it was also one of the first music videos ever filmed. The reason being that the band did not want to show up on TV shows and perform it, even though it was the single from their newest record. You have to remember, this is about 10 years before any video shows. So it kind of set the tone for it. It kind of basically showed everyone how to do it. The other thing is there's some unique performances by more than one person, even though Freddie's the obvious thing because most people hear the voice and you recognize his voice and how well he sings on it. He's bringing opera together with rock and roll. And those two worlds are really different. They don't usually go together, but he was the first guy that was daring enough to do that, to expose himself that way and say, this is what I'm doing. And it's very original because of that. He also had Brian May's guitar sound and his playing, which is extremely melodic and very unique in its own way. And for the people who think that Eddie Van Halen was the first guy to build his own guitar, you have to remember that Brian May actually built his own guitar way before then with his father. And Brian May has a degree in astrophysics, so I guess maybe it was a little easier for him to build it than Eddie. That said, there's also the fact that the song came out in 1975. And if you think about the kind of music that was out then, and even today, pop songs are basically about 3 minutes long. And this song's 6 minutes long. So for it to get airplay, it was pretty crazy. And it was unedited. It was played on the air unedited, beginning to end, all 6 minutes. Amazing, because when I hear that song, I can hear the players as well. I can tell who's in the band, who's playing, if I've listened to that band before. Whereas some of the pop songs I hear today, I'm not sure if the bass player is from 6 different bands. Now, there's a lot of unique things that happened during the recording session for this song. One of the things is that there was a multiple use of overdubs. Now, some people don't know what that means. Simply, that means that the same person's recording the same part twice, 3 times, 4 times, over and over. So you literally get layers and layers of either the same person or the same part stacked up to make it sound big. Queen did 2 things. Not only did Freddie record himself, his own voice, multiple times to sing both harmonies and his own part, like the main melody, they also would have all 3 guys singing at the same time, standing around one microphone. And if you made a mistake, you had to go back and do it again. So you can imagine how long this took. They did this over and over to the point where there's reportedly 128 overdubs. That's a lot. That's so many that back then, you have to remember the times, 1975, bands were recording on 2-inch tape. It wasn't digital. And they had recorded so much on the tape, and the tape had gone back and forth across the record and playback heads, so much of the machine, that you could see through the tape because the magnetic oxide was coming off the backing tape. Needless to say, that had something to do with the sound of the recording as well. Now, for me, one of the things I'd always be interested in hearing is the original demo of this song. Like, what did it sound like? Was it just Freddie at a piano and him singing and then kind of stopping and saying, oh yeah, so, and then everyone sings here? Because I know I've done demos and I love the fact they'll listen to stuff, and I've heard demos of other people's songs, and it's really cool to see how the original ends up sounding compared to the idea that they had on their little 4-track or whatever machine they're using at that time. Well, there was no demo of this song, and Freddie had all the parts in his head. He literally came in and said, well, here's my voice. Here's where the piano enters, and this is how the melody goes. And he sort of explained the song as he went along to both the producer and the band. And the musicians were cool enough in the band that they said, okay, well, I'm going to play where you say when. They were going to respond to what Freddie said. So if you're wondering just how much of a genius Freddie is, that's pretty self-explanatory right there. He had the entire song in his head and it wasn't done. All the parts, everything. And as they recorded it in segments and movements, kind of like a classical piece, he kind of explained it and said, this is how this part goes. This is how that part goes, right till the end. Kind of like building a house, only there's no plans. The builder, the architect's saying, yeah, okay, we're just going to do this with the roof. And you got to trust them. With a lot of bands, we talk about their influence on other bands and music in general. And Queen is hugely influential to a lot of artists. However, you don't really hear a lot of bands that sound like Queen. They might do something Queen-ish or Queen-esque, but they don't really sound like the band. They don't bring all those elements together. If they're a hard rock band, maybe they bring in the pop chorus, or if they're a progressive band, maybe they bring in an opera segment, but they don't really do it all. Case in point, I guess, to compare it to someone is when you hear a band like Nirvana, who was huge and obviously influential. There's bands out there where you go, hey, that's kind of Nirvana-ish, and you can kind of hear the influence pretty clearly in their music. With Queen, there's no other band that sounds like Queen. One of the unique things about Queen was that all 4 band members wrote, and 3 of the band members were also lead vocalists. So there are songs on the album like My Best Friend, which was written by John Deacon, the bassist, but Freddie Mercury sang it. Also, there's songs like 39, which Brian May, the guitar player, wrote and sang. But Brian also wrote the Prophet song, which Freddie Mercury sang. It's a pretty unique thing because most people only know Freddie as the lead vocalist of Queen, and yet there's songs sung by Brian and by Roger Taylor, the drummer. You don't see a lot of that today. The lyrics in Bohemian Rhapsody are a little bit mysterious, which is on purpose. Freddie Mercury didn't really want people to know what he was singing about all the time. And the band is very guarded as to what the meaning is. Some people have said it has something to do with the changes in Freddie's life and his lifestyle at the time. Other people think it has something to do with his roommate/girlfriend at the time, whose name was Mary. I'm not sure either. If you have an idea and you know, write in, tell me. Brian May, the guitar player from Queen, is extremely individual in his choices of guitars, amps, and pedals to get a tone that he says he hears. And it's extremely unique. Besides the fact that his vibrato and choice of notes and phrasing, he also tended to use a Vox AC30 as his main amplifier, and he used a treble booster to push the front end and really turn it into a very sustainy long overdrive. But on a lot of the violin harmonies, he used a small amp that was built by the bass player, John Deacon, that was solid state. So all those guys that say tube amps are the way to go, be careful. Good tone is in here, your hands. That's the big rock intro part that comes in near the end of the song. A lot of people think that that's where the band and Brian May came in and said, oh, let's write this part and put this in here. But the truth is that that was actually written by Freddie on piano, Freddie Mercury. And he used his left hand to show everyone on piano how the part went. So it's in an unusual key for rock guitar players. It's in B flat. That's actually one of the big giveaways, that it's a piano part originally and not a guitar part. Most guitar players, especially rock guitar players, would probably write that part in A instead. So the first time I learned it, I found it very different. I was like, whoa, I'm playing this wrong. And I was playing it in the wrong key. Really unique, very cool. One of Queen's biggest influences was the Beatles. When the Beatles were doing background vocals and harmonies, they would have 3 of the members stand around one microphone and record 3-part harmony at the same time. Then they would double it, meaning they would sing the exact same thing and record it again to give a bigger effect. Queen and their producer at the time, Roy Thomas Baker, decided to take this and one-up it. So what they would do is they would record 3 of them doing 3-part harmony and then double it and then do it again and triple it and then quadruple it. And sometimes they'd have all 3 members sing the same notes and do the same thing. Single, double, triple, quadruple, and it gave this very big choir effect or choral effect. At the time, it was extremely revolutionary. People were not doing this kind of thing, and it became a signature of the Queen's sound. Later on, when you hear other songs, there's obvious examples of this, where you hear the whole band singing, and it's huge. Again, also very influential on later bands and albums. Example, Def Leppard on Photograph and Boston on their first album. A lot of the recording techniques for Bohemian Rhapsody were very revolutionary for the time. We can't show you the video due to YouTube copyright, and we can't play the song for the same reason, but we are going to post a link to the song and also to a site that has individual tracks where we can all hear what these guys did. So to wrap up this segment of what makes this great, Bohemian Rhapsody is still being listened to around the world today, just as exciting and fresh as it was the first day it came out. What's really important is that we want to know why you think it's great. So if you have some comments to add, please send it to us. If there's a band or an artist you want us to listen to or look at, send us that too. And don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. From Way Too Famous, thank you.